I'm using this as an example, and what I'm going to show you applies to utility trucks or to passenger vehicles. If you've been on the road and you have experienced a tire puncture and have had to replace the tire on the side of the road, the first thing you need to do is get the factory supplied tire wrench out and remove the wheel nuts. I'm a small fella, so it's difficult, but even big fellas with the short leverage, there's very little torque to turn that, and it is next to impossible to remove a wheel nut, especially on the side of the road. If you're in a home garage and you intend to do tire rotation, you still have to remove the wheel nuts, and this is not something I would use. Instead, use this. It's called a torque multiplier. It is also called a nut cracker. The nut cracker makes removing wheel nuts extremely easy and effortless. I will show you how. And after you've removed the wheel nuts, replace the tire with a new tire or a different tire because you're doing tire rotation. You need to tighten those wheel nuts to the correct torque specifications instructed by the manufacturer. To tighten the wheel nuts to the correct torque specifications, you need a torque wrench. I'll show you how to use this. Obviously, if you're on the side of the road and doing a quick tire repair, you don't need a torque wrench. It's not convenient to carry, but it is convenient to carry this. And when you have to tighten the wheel nuts, you can use this factory supplied wrench. So join me in this video as I show you how I do it with the right tools. This is the torque multiplier nutcracker I bought from eBay. It's very little money, very cheap. I think it's worth carrying in every car, so I've got one in my truck and I've got one in my wife's car. Inside, you get 5 items. You get a handle, you get the main mechanism, and then you get 3 half-inch square drive sockets. That's a 70mm, 19mm, and a 21mm socket. To assemble the nutcracker, the square drive on the handle goes into the socket on the body, and in the case of my truck, it needs a 21mm socket, so that goes into this part. So that's what it looks like. How it works is, when I turn the handle, 16 revolutions of the handle turn will turn the socket 1 revolution. So the force multiplier is 16 times, which is why it makes removing a nut that much less effort. So let me demonstrate by removing this wheel nut. So this is movable. What this arm allows you to do is to find the nearest socket that can fit and gain leverage when you turn. So in this case, the hex socket goes to the nut that I want to remove, and the cylinder arm goes into that one. Now you may have to turn this slightly in order to get the hex shape to fit that nut. So do this slowly until you find you've got a good fit. And I think I've got the good fit there. Take note, I need very little force to turn and loosen the nut. It may slip out, so just push it back in. And look, now it's one-handed. I fundamentally removed it. There you go. Easy. Because it makes removing a nut so effortless, I think this is almost a mandatory equipment in every car, truck. Now what I will show you is how to correctly tighten the wheel nut to the factory specified torque. So I've just hand tightened this. I must not use the nut cracker to tighten. It must only be used for loosening the wheel nut. because if I use the nutcracker to tighten the nut, the amount of force used will be too much and it will easily snap the bolt, destroy the thread. So remember this, do not use this for tightening a nut, only use it for unloosening. On the side of the road, you have very little equipment. You can use the factory supplied wrench to tighten as much as you can. The issue is you have no idea what the torque is that you've tightened. So what this does mean is when you get back home, or if you are just replacing a wheel in your home garage, then you need to use an industrial torque wrench, one like this. This is an industrial torque wrench made by Warren and Brown in Australia. The model here is 323500. It looks like this in the case. This is a gold colored one. I liked it. It was a special edition. Because Warren and Brown make industrial tools, the torque wrench is tested and certified. So here's the torque wrench. This is a lock screw. If I unlock it and push it all the way to the left, I can set the edge of the indicator on 30 Newton meters. If I push it to the extreme right, I can set it at 300 Newton meters. There are three scales on this. There's foot-pounds, there's Newton meters, and there's kilogram meters. I'm used to Newton meters, which is the scale in the middle. For my truck, the manufacturer states the torque should be, for steel wheels, 147 Newton meters. So I'm gonna set it at 145. Because it can be 147 Newton meters plus or minus 10. So it's now set at 145. Next, I push this steel rod in, and you note this sharp spring-loaded pin moves up and catches this rod in position. So how the torque wrench works is, when I apply torque, this beam bends, and when it bends this way, that gets closer to the flat edge here, and when it's close enough, the pin will touch and click, and when it clicks, it releases that rod, and this gives you visual and audio alert that the torque specified has been achieved. I'll now put the 21mm square drive socket to the end. It's set on 145 Newton meters. I'll fit the socket into the nut that I want to tighten, and tightening is a clockwise turn, so that means I have to lift this up, and I want to hear and watch this pin released. There, it clicked at that point, and you see the pin is released. I like to do this a few times as a check, so I'll push the pin in again. It gets locked. Put the socket into the nut. Get into a good position to turn. It's clicked again. I'll demonstrate again. The pin is in. I'm gonna turn and watch and hear the click. One more time. So that's a clear indication that nut is now locked at 145 Newton meters. There are different models and sizes of torque wrench in order to handle different torque specifications. This is a smaller model. It's also by Warren and Brown, and the model is 321500. It operates in the range of 5 Newton meters up to 120 Newton meters. If you look at that, that's a size difference. This handles about half the torque that this bigger model handles. And if I was working on other machine parts which needs even smaller torque settings, I have something like this one. It handles 6 to 30 Newton meters. It's a micrometer version. It doesn't bend, but there's a spring in there, and the torque settings are here. So to set the torque, obviously this isn't used for wheel nuts, but I'm just showing you the different torque wrenches that are used for tightening different types of torque settings, not only just for wheel nuts. I hope you have enjoyed this video and found it informative. Do hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more and to help the channel grow. Thank you so much.